It's never-before-seen police body cam video of Brian Koberger, the monster who killed 4 college roommates. He'd just been pulled over for speeding.
You realize this is 35?
Oh, it's 35?
It is, yeah. So you're going.
41?
Yeah, 43 is what the radar said.
The deputy notices that Koberger isn't wearing his seatbelt.
Were you wearing your seatbelt when I stopped you?
No.
No. That's no good.
Right. Just being honest with you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
You guys are. There's absolutely no point in not being honest.
The deputy tells Koberger he's getting a $10 seatbelt citation. Then, Koberger makes a shocking remark.
I'm obviously an honest person, right? I told you I wasn't wearing my seatbelt.
3 months later, Koberger butchered the 4 University of Idaho students. Koberger is driving a white Hyundai Elantra, the same car he drove the night of the murders, which was key to tracking him down. Prosecutors plan to play the traffic stop video at Koberger's murder trial, but the trial was called off after Koberger reached a plea deal. The road where he was pulled over is in Moscow, Idaho, where the roommates lived. Meanwhile, we're learning how the surviving roommate is coping today. Dylan Mortensen gave a heartbreaking victim's impact statement at Koberger's sentencing last week.
I can't breathe. I can't think. I can't stop shaking.
Now, her aunts have started a GoFundMe page as she rebuilds her life. Dylan has had to learn how to live in her new reality, forever lacking peace, security, safety, and her closest friends, they say. The target is $90,000.
Brian Kornberg, you've seen the name, a name that exploded across the internet, linked to one of the most shocking and devastating crimes in recent American history, the loss of 4 promising university students. This name has been tweeted, shared, and debated by millions, woven into the fabric of a case that has captivated and horrified the nation. But there's a fundamental jarring problem with this entire narrative, a truth that gets lost in the digital noise and the relentless churn of online speculation. Brian Kornberg is a ghost. He doesn't exist. So how did a completely fabricated name become a central figure in a real-life tragedy? How did a fiction spread so far and so fast that it was mistaken for fact? And most importantly, what is the real story, the meticulously investigated, fact-based account that this viral falsehood has so dangerously obscured? Today, we're peeling back the layers of digital distortion. We will confront the fiction of Brian Kornberg head on and then meticulously reconstruct the verified timeline of the case against the actual suspect. This is a story about a horrific crime, a complex investigation, and the dangerous, often misleading power of the internet. We are here to separate the facts from the fiction, because in the pursuit of justice, the truth is the only thing that matters. Before the swarm of news vans, before the yellow tape and the global headlines, there was Moscow, Idaho, nestled among the rolling hills of the Palouse region. Moscow is the kind of American college town you see in movies. It's a place defined by its tight-knit community, the vibrant energy of the University of Idaho, and an overwhelming sense of safety. Doors are often left unlocked. Neighbors know each other by name. The very idea of serious crime was so foreign it felt impossible. That deeply ingrained sense of security is what made the events of November 13th, 2022 so profoundly shattering. On that cold November morning, the illusion of safety wasn't just broken, it was annihilated. And at the heart of this tragedy were 4 young people, 4 vibrant lives filled with promise. To understand the depth of this crime, we have to know who they were. Kaylee Goncalves, 21, was fiercely loyal and adventurous. She was just weeks from graduating and had a tech job lined up in Austin, Texas. She'd already booked her flight and was planning a backpacking trip through Europe to celebrate. Kaylee lived life to the fullest, and her bond with her best friend Madison Mogan was legendary. Madison Mogan, 21, known as Maddie, was a creative and kind soul who worked at a local restaurant and was known for her infectious smile. She and Kaylee had been inseparable since the 6th grade. They were planning to move to Austin together after graduation, ready to take on the world side by side. Their friendship was more like a sisterhood, a shared journey that was supposed to last a lifetime. Xana Kernel, 20, was a firecracker, bubbly, tough, and fiercely independent. Her energy could light up any room. She was in a budding relationship with Ethan Chapin, and friends saw a genuine happiness and excitement in their connection. Ethan Chapin, 20, didn't live at the King Road residence, but he was a constant, welcome presence, a soul triplet. He was incredibly close with his two siblings, who also attended the University of Idaho. Friends and family remember him for his huge, goofy grin and his unwavering kindness. These weren't just names on a news report. They were friends, siblings, and children. They were studying for finals, making plans for Thanksgiving, and looking forward to their futures. The house on King Road was not just a crime scene, it was their home, a place of friendship and laughter, a place that was supposed to be safe. And it's in the happy, normal details of their final hours that the horror of what came next becomes truly clear. Saturday, November 12, 2022, started as a typical weekend for Kaylee Goncalves and Madison Mogan. The night began at the Corner Club, a popular student bar. They were seen in photos with friends, smiling and having a good time. Around 1:30 a.m., they left the bar and walked to the Grub Truck, a well-known late-night food spot. A live stream from the truck captured them ordering food, laughing and chatting with other students, just two friends, ending their night with a familiar ritual. After getting their food, they got a ride home, arriving back at 1122 King Road at approximately 1:56 a.m. Phone records later showed that between 2:26 a.m. and 2:52 a.m., Kaylee made several calls to a former boyfriend. The calls went unanswered. There was nothing to suggest she was in distress. Meanwhile, Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin had been at a party at the Sigma Chi fraternity house. They returned to the King Road house around 1:45 a.m., just a few minutes before Kaylee and Madison arrived. Their night was also completely normal. Things get chilling a little later. Around 4 a.m., Xana received a DoorDash delivery. Phone records show she was on TikTok around 4:12 a.m. At about this time, one of the surviving roommates, identified as DM, was woken up by what sounded like crying from Xana's room. She then heard a male voice say something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." A moment of pure terror followed. DM opened her bedroom door and saw a figure in black clothing and a mask that covered his mouth and nose. The figure, a man described as 5'10" inches or taller and athletically built with bushy eyebrows, walked right past her. She stood frozen in shock as the man walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room. She didn't recognize him. After this terrifying encounter, silence fell over the house. The two surviving roommates on the first floor thought the sounds were just the normal weekend noise of a student house. They went to sleep unaware of the horrific situation that had just occurred on the floors above. It wouldn't be until nearly noon the next day that the true scale of the horror inside 1122 King Road would be discovered. The 911 call came in at 11:58 a.m. on Sunday, requesting aid for an unconscious person. When officers arrived, they were confronted with a scene of unimaginable devastation. On the second and third floors, they discovered that Ethan, Xana, Madison, and Kaylee were all gone. This was the loss of 4 lives in the most devastating way possible. The initial days of the investigation were marked by confusion and panic. The Moscow police, a small department, were suddenly at the center of a case involving 4 young people who had lost their lives. The police chief confirmed that the students had been taken from this world by someone using an edged weapon such as a knife. I'm using softer language here because of YouTube's guidelines, but you understand the gravity of what happened. Crucially, he initially told the public he believed it was a targeted situation and that there was no ongoing threat to the community. That assurance, meant to calm people down, had the opposite effect. With no suspect and no weapon, how could police be sure the threat was contained? The question hung heavy. Students began leaving campus in droves. The university, usually bustling, became a ghost town. The fear was real. For weeks, the investigation seemed stalled from the outside. The lack of a clear suspect fueled a firestorm of online speculation, with internet sleuths pointing fingers at innocent friends and ex-partners. But behind the scenes, a massive multi-agency investigation was piecing together the puzzle. The FBI and Idaho State Police joined the local department, combing through thousands of hours of surveillance footage, and in that painstaking work, they found their first major lead. A Moscow police officer reviewing footage spotted a white sedan driving past the King Road home multiple times early on November 13th. The car circled the area before returning a final time around 4 a.m., then was seen speeding away at 4:20 a.m. Investigators narrowed it down, a white 2011 to 2016 Hyundai Elantra. On December 7th, police made a public appeal for information about this car. It was a critical turning point. The very next day, law enforcement at nearby Washington State University, just 8 miles away in Pullman, Washington, searched for white Hyundai Elantras registered on campus. They found one, a 2015 model registered to a PhD student in the criminal justice program. His name was Brian Christopher Koberger. The name Brian Koberger immediately raised red flags. He wasn't just a student, he was a student of criminology, studying the very nature of crime. He lived in an apartment in Pullman, a short drive from Moscow. When police pulled his driver's license photo, they saw his description, tall, lean, with bushy eyebrows, matched what the surviving roommate had seen. The puzzle pieces began to connect quickly. Investigators discovered Koberger's cell phone had pinged near the King Road house at least 12 times in the months before what happened that night, suggesting a pattern of surveillance. On the night the four students lost their lives, his phone left his apartment around 2:47 a.m. and traveled toward Moscow. Then it went dark, likely turned off to avoid detection. The phone didn't come back on until 4:48 a.m., pinging south of Moscow on a rural highway before taking a strange roundabout route back to Pullman. The digital footprint was compelling, but prosecutors needed physical evidence. They found it on a tan leather knife sheath left at the scene, lying next to where Madison Mogen and Kaylee Goncalves were discovered. The sheath had a single source of male DNA on the button snap. This is where forensic genealogy came in. The FBI used the DNA profile to search public genealogy databases, the same kind people use to trace their family trees. They found a partial match to a distant relative. By building out that family tree, investigators narrowed it down to one man, Brian Koberger. To confirm it, law enforcement went to his parents' home in Pennsylvania, where he had driven for the holidays. On December 27th, they secretly recovered a DNA sample from the family's trash. The lab confirmed it was from the father of the person whose DNA was on the knife sheath. The chain of evidence was complete. In the pre-dawn hours of December 30th, 2022, a SWAT team descended on the Koberger family home and arrested a stunned Brian Koberger. The 47-day manhunt was over. The faceless person responsible that haunted the community's nightmares now had a name and a face. As the real investigation into Brian Koberger was secretly moving forward, a parallel narrative was forming online. In the vacuum of official information, the internet tried to solve the mystery itself. And in this wild west of information, a new name emerged, Brian Koberger. It's impossible to pinpoint the exact moment Koberger was born. Most likely it started as a simple typo of Koberger. But unlike most typos, this one stuck. The name began appearing in tweets and on TikTok. Fueled by algorithms that prioritize engagement over accuracy, the falsehood spread like wildfire. The Koberger narrative took on a life of its own. Some posts claimed it was the correct name. Others spun theories that Koberger was a secret accomplice or the real person responsible. The name became a kind of digital folklore. Videos titled "The Truth About Brian Koberger" racked up views, not by presenting facts, but by feeding the public's appetite for inside information. Of course, credible news organizations consistently and correctly reported the suspect's name as Brian Koberger. But for anyone casually following the case on social media, the repeated appearance of Brian Koberger gave the name a false sense of legitimacy. This situation was not just a harmless mistake. It created a layer of confusion that made it harder for the public to follow the actual facts. There was never an accomplice named Koberger. There was only Brian Christopher Koberger, the man identified by police, linked by DNA, and charged with taking the lives of 4 innocent students. The entire Koberger saga was a digital ghost, a testament to the power of a typo and a cautionary tale for our times. While the physical evidence was crucial, the investigation also revealed the sophisticated digital forensics that helped crack the case. Beyond the cell phone pings, investigators dove deep into Koberger's digital footprint, uncovering a disturbing pattern of behavior that painted a picture of someone who had been planning and preparing for weeks, if not months. Digital forensics experts discovered that Koberger had been researching the area extensively online. His search history revealed queries about the King Road neighborhood, local businesses, and even specific details about student life at the University of Idaho. What made this particularly chilling was the timeline. These searches began months before the tragic events unfolded. The investigation also revealed that Koberger had been using various social media platforms to gather information about the local area and student activities. While he maintained a relatively low online profile, investigators found evidence that he had been monitoring local events and gathering intelligence about student routines and hangout spots. Perhaps most disturbing were the academic interests that seemed to align with his alleged actions. As a PhD student in criminal justice, Koberger had access to extensive research on criminal behavior, forensic techniques, and investigative methods. His thesis work focused on understanding how criminals think and operate, knowledge that investigators believe he may have used to try to cover his tracks. The digital evidence also revealed the calculated nature of his movements that night. The precise timing of when his phone went dark, the route he took, and the way he attempted to avoid detection all suggested someone who understood how modern investigations work. This wasn't a crime of passion, it was methodically planned and executed by someone who believed he could outsmart law enforcement. The ripple effects of this case extended far beyond the immediate families and friends of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. The University of Idaho, a close-knit campus community, was fundamentally changed by these events. Students who had never locked their doors began installing security systems. Parents who had felt comfortable sending their children to this small college town suddenly questioned everything they thought they knew about safety. The economic impact on Moscow was significant as well. The town, which relies heavily on university students and their families, saw enrollment drop as parents pulled their children from school. Local businesses that catered to students noticed the decrease in foot traffic as many students chose to finish their semester remotely or transfer to other institutions. Mental health resources on campus were overwhelmed in the weeks and months following the incident. Counselors worked around the clock to help students process their grief, fear, and trauma. Many students reported difficulty sleeping, concentrating on their studies, or feeling safe in their own homes. The university brought in additional counselors and implemented new safety measures, but the psychological scars ran deep. The surviving roommates faced particular challenges. DM, who had seen the perpetrator that night, required extensive support and protection. Both surviving roommates had to cope with survivors' guilt, intense media scrutiny, and the knowledge that they had been just feet away from unimaginable danger. Their courage in cooperating with the investigation and their strength in moving forward became an inspiration to many, though their privacy and ongoing healing process deserved respect. The families of the victims became advocates for justice and change. They pushed for improved campus security measures, better emergency response protocols, and enhanced safety education for college students nationwide. Their grief was transformed into action, ensuring that their children's legacies would include making college campuses safer for future generations. Section 8. The Legal Labyrinth and Resolution. Following his arrest, the case against Brian Koberger transitioned from a manhunt to a complex legal proceeding. On May 22, 2023, he appeared in court for his arraignment. When asked to enter a plea, his attorney stated they would be standing silent. In response, the judge entered a plea of not guilty on Koberger's behalf, and everyone prepared for a long, high-profile trial. A comprehensive gag order was issued, preventing attorneys and law enforcement from speaking publicly about the case to ensure a fair trial. Prosecutors for Latah County announced they would seek the ultimate penalty under the law. The defense team, led by experienced capital case attorneys, began the lengthy process of reviewing thousands of pieces of evidence, witness statements, and forensic reports. The legal proceedings were complicated by the intense media attention and public interest in the case. The defense filed multiple motions, including requests to suppress certain evidence and change the venue due to pretrial publicity. After extensive hearings and legal arguments, the trial was eventually moved from Moscow to Boise in Ada County to find an impartial jury. The stage was set for a dramatic capital case trial in the summer of 2025. The preparation for trial involved hundreds of witnesses, expert testimony from forensic specialists, DNA analysts, and digital forensics experts. The prosecution's case was built on the mountain of circumstantial evidence, the DNA match, and the digital trail that placed Koberger at the scene. The defense strategy focused on challenging the DNA evidence, questioning the investigation methods, and raising doubts about the timeline and motive. But in a stunning turn of events, that trial never happened. In late June 2025, just before jury selection was set to begin, Koberger's defense team reached a deal with prosecutors. The negotiations were intense and lasted several days, with both sides weighing the strength of their cases and the wishes of the victims' families. He agreed to plead guilty to all 4 counts of first-degree charges related to taking the lives of the 4 students. In exchange for his guilty plea, prosecutors took the ultimate penalty off the table. On July 23, 2025, Brian Koberger appeared before Judge Stephen Hippler in Boise. The courtroom was packed with family members, survivors, and members of the media as he formally entered his guilty plea. During the sentencing hearing, family members were given the opportunity to deliver victim impact statements. The raw emotion in the courtroom was palpable as parents, siblings, and friends spoke about the irreplaceable loss of Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan. Their words painted pictures of vibrant young people whose futures had been stolen, dreams that would never be realized, and families forever changed. Koberger was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences in prison without the possibility of parole. As part of the plea deal, he also waived his right to ever appeal the conviction or the sentence. The judge's final words emphasized that justice had been served, but acknowledged that no sentence could ever truly compensate for the loss of 4 innocent lives. The legal case was officially over, but one haunting question remains unanswered. Why? Throughout the entire investigation and legal process, no clear motive was ever established. No connection between Koberger and the 4 students whose lives he took was ever found. He took that answer with him to prison, leaving families and the community to grapple with the senseless nature of their loss. Conclusion. The story of the Idaho student case is a tragedy of profound loss. It is the story of Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin, 4 young people whose bright futures were stolen. Their memories should be the central focus, a reminder of the human cost at the heart of the headlines. This case is also a story of meticulous police work. It's a testament to the investigators who navigated a storm of digital noise to follow the evidence, from a glimpse of a white car to a microscopic trace of DNA, and finally, this case became an object lesson in misinformation. The Brian Kornberg phenomenon is a stark warning about how easily falsehoods can spread, creating confusion and distracting from the truth. With Brian Kornberger sentenced to spend the rest of his life in prison, the legal chapter of this story is now closed. For the families, for the community of Moscow, and for everyone affected by this crime, the path to healing is long. But in the eyes of the law, justice has been served. The most important thing we can do is honor the victims by focusing on the facts and allowing their memories, not the speculation, to be the final word. The tragedy that befell these 4 bright souls serves as a reminder that evil can strike anywhere, even in the safest of places. But it also shows us that through careful investigation, dedication to the truth, and the pursuit of justice, even the most complex cases can be solved. Kaylee, Madison, Xana, and Ethan deserve better than what happened to them that night. They deserve to graduate, to pursue their dreams, to live full lives surrounded by family and friends. While we can't give them back their futures, we can ensure their stories are told truthfully and their memories are preserved with dignity and respect. For more deep dives that separate fact from fiction and provide evidence-based analysis of complex cases, please consider subscribing to our channel. Thank you for watching.